Today we are going to start our second lecture from the eyeball unit of Ramay ophthalmology book. We have already studied that there are three main codes of eyeball, three main codes or layers of eye, and these are first one is the fibrous layer, okay. Second one is the vascular pigmented layer, and third one is the nervous layer. So let's discuss first of all fibrous layer. It consists of sclera and the cornea. Sclera, what is the sclera? Sclera forms the posterior 5 to 6 part of the eyeball. If there are 6 parts of the eyeball, then out of the 6 parts, 5 parts is made up of the sclera. Let's clear this in the diagram. Look here that this part, this hole, this is known as the sclera. This one, and this front part, this is known as the cornea. This one is the cornea, and this one is the sclera. There are three apertures of the sclera with the different structures. Let's see this in the diagram. Now you know that this whole part, this posterior part, this is the sclera. Now look the sclera, that there are three different apertures. First of all, the posterior aperture. This is the posterior part of the sclera. Okay, and here is the interior part. First of all, the posterior apertures give the rise to the long and the short posterior ciliary artery, because this is the posterior part. So these apertures will give way to the long and the short posterior ciliary artery, then also travel though these posterior aperture are the long ciliary nerves. In the middle, there is another aperture in the middle. Look here, for the passage of the vortex veins, and more anteriorly, look here that there is another aperture for the anterior ciliary artery and vein. So first one, second one, and this is the third one. Let's see in the Ramay's theory. Anterior aperture for the branch of the anterior ciliary artery. I have shown you middle for the exit of the vortex veins. Posterior one for the long and the short ciliary nerves and the vessels. Scleral opacity is due to the irregular arrangement of the scleral collagen. It means that the opaque appearance of the sclera is due to irregularity of the collagen. This is the difference between the sclera and the cornea, that in cornea there is regular arrangement of regular collagen. That is why cornea is transparent. Transparent. Okay, while the sclera is opaque. Sclera is opaque. Okay, irregular arrangement gives rise to the opaque sclera. This is a very important point, can be asked in the MCQs. Look here, the anterior portion of the sclera is visible clinically beneath the transparent conjunctiva as the white of the eye. If we see the eye from the front, then the anterior portion of the sclera is visible. The white of the sclera actually is white of the eyeball is known as the sclera. Now, sclera is thinnest just posterior to the recti insertion. This point is very important. Let's make it clear in the diagram. I have already told you that this is the sclera hole, this black one, this one, hole is the sclera. So here are the recti muscles attached. Recti muscles are attached here. Okay, recti muscles. Sclera moves here. Here the sclera is thin. As it goes backward, it becomes thick, like here. Okay, here. Here the sclera is more thick. So we can say that sclera is thinnest just posterior to the recti insertion, because as it moves backward, it becomes more thickened. And the thickest point of the sclera is around the optic nerve. Here, here the optic nerve fibers are coming. So the thickest point of the sclera is around the optic nerve, or we can say this is 1 millimeter thick. 1 millimeter thick. And remember that this sclera goes backward. Look here, this sclera goes backward and it is continuous with the dural layer of the covering of the optic nerve. Okay, let's study from the Ramay theory. I have already told you that maximum thickness is 1 millimeter and this is around the optic nerve. Around optic nerve, and sclera is thinnest just posterior to the recti insertion. So you don't have forget again this. Sclera is weakest at lamina cribrosa. And other important point. We have again referred to that diagram. Look here that sclera is coming and is thickened here, and most of the sclera moves backward here and backward here, but some of the sclera is continuous with the counterpart here. Okay, and this sclera is weak because the optic nerve fibers pierces the here it, and it give rise to the perforations are known as the sieve-like structure. Sieve-like structure known as lamina cribrosa. Cribrosa means large number of perforations. Okay. Perforations. This point is known as the scleral foramen or the lamina cribrosa. This is the sieve-like structure due to the many of the perforations caused by the optic nerve fibers. Let's study all this from the Ramay's theory. Optic nerve perforates the sclera posteriorly. I have shown you. This is 3 millimeter medial and 1 millimeter above the posterior pole of the eyeball. We have studied this thing in the previous lecture, in the first lecture. The site of this perforation is known as scleral foramen. I have just shown you this. The point where the optic nerve pierces the sclera is weakened, okay, and has a sieve-like appearance known as the lamina cribrosa. So, why the sclera is weakest? Because there are perforations in the sclera caused by the optic nerve fibers. Lamina cribrosa bulges outward by a rise in the intraocular pressure, producing a cupped disc. Again, refer to that diagram. If this, if there is a increased intraocular pressure, it puts pressure on this lamina cribrosa and it becomes bulged like this one. So it becomes like a cup, and this is known as the cupped disc. Cupped disc. This is the cupped disc. Now, anteriorly, the sclera is continuous with the cornea. The site of this junction is known as the corneoscleral junction or the limbus. Posterior to this junction, I will show you this in the diagram. Posterior to this junction or the limbus lies a circular canal called as the sinus venous sclera, or also known as canal of Schlemm. Posterior to this canal of Schlemm is the projecting ridge of the circular tissue called as scleral spur. It gives rise attachment to the ciliary muscle. Again, we have to see this in the diagram. That look here, that this is the sclera and this is the cornea. This junction is known as the limbus or the corneoscleral junction. Posterior to this junction, here there will be the Schlemm canal and also a part of the sclera becoming a circular thickening here known as the scleral spur. Scleral spur. Let's make it clear in another diagram. Look here that this is the sclera coming, okay, making a thickening here, scleral spur, and here there is the Schlemm's canal which drains the aqueous. Look here. Sclera is mostly avascular. Sclera is mostly avascular. It is 65 to 70% of water. Sclera can be bluish in the newborns and in the patients of the Marfan syndrome and the osteogenesis imperfecta. Why? Because in the newborns, sclera is underdeveloped, not fully developed, underdeveloped. That's why the choroidal cells, underlying choroidal cells, look here, choroidal pigment cells gives the bluish hue to the sclera. Bluish tinge of the sclera in the children is due to choroidal pigment cells. Similarly, in the Marfan syndrome and the osteogenesis imperfecta, because these are the connective tissue disease disorders, sclera is thinned. Sclera is thinned. Actually, the bluish color we are seeing, that is due to the underlying choroidal pigment cells. In the adult, sclera is dull white. In adults, the sclera is dull white, while in the young, in the elderly, people, sclera may have the yellowish color due to the deposition of fat. Sclera is continuous with the dura mater. I have already told you and shown you in the diagram. Lamina fusca is separated from the external surface of the choroid by a potential space called the periporoidal space. Let's make this concept clear. Concept of lamina fusca. So there are four layers of the sclera. First of all is the outermost is the episclera. Look here that this layer here, this is the episclera. Uh, Already I have told you that this is the sclera, or this is known as the sclera proper. Sclera proper or stroma. So two layers, and this one, this layer here, this is known as the lamina fusca. Lamina fusca. This whole layer, this whole layer. This is known as the lamina fusca. Actually, this is a part of the sclera or the layer of the sclera, and the innermost layer is the endothelium. Innermost layer is the endothelium. In the Ramay theory, it is written that lamina fusca is separated. This inner one. This is the choroid. Is separated from the choroid by a potential space known as the periporoidal space. Periporoidal space. And this lamina fusca is also known as suprachoroidal lamina. Suprachoroidal lamina. I hope that this lamina fusca should be clear now, because this is the part of the sclera which lies between the sclera proper and the choroid, and there is the potential space known as the periporoidal space. That's all about today's lecture.